I've lived in Paris, in Rio, which is one of the most gorgeous cities in the world. I have been all over Europe. And recently I've decided to live in Montreal, Canada. Why? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back in time. I've moved 9 times in my life. 9 times. Holy cow, that's a lot. Not just to be for a little bit in another place. I'm talking about moving, actually moving, taking all of your stuff in life and going to a different place to live there for years. I've always moved to another place because I felt there was something missing. Think of it, you've probably moved at some point in your life, at least to another apartment or house, right? And maybe you want to move to another city or a country as well. So what is that you're missing? What is that you want to find when you move? We all have different reasons. Maybe it's because of safety, maybe it's because of the work marketplace, maybe it's because of the person you want to be with. Whatever the reason, there's something we're trying to find in that new place. So why Montreal? Life threw a lot at me in the recent years, I feel, and I felt like I needed to move. I definitely had my reasons to move somewhere else. Didn't know where to go though. I was already living in Canada, in Ottawa at that point, and if I were to stay, the options were limited. As you may know, there are mainly 3 large cities in Canada, or I should say dense. There are mainly 3 dense cities in Canada, or very dense cities in Canada: Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. I ruled out Vancouver right away because it's on the west coast and it's further from places I like being, like Europe or Brazil. Toronto was an option, but to be honest, I didn't really think I wanted to live there. It's fun to be there for a few days, but for me personally, it feels a little bit too modern, too soulless. I don't know, it's just how I feel about the city. That's the impression I got every time that I've been there, but again, that's very personal. So it's fun, but do I really want to live there? So I was left with Montreal. Montreal felt wrong. I don't know how to describe it, but I think it felt like the wrong choice because it was never the plan. I hadn't even considered Montreal when I came to Canada, so it felt like it wasn't a good choice. Now, a few things. Most people in Montreal speak French as their first language. And guess what? I speak French. Although my French is slightly different. My French is the French from France. And here they speak with a different accent. But I should be fine, right? Right? Montreal is quite close to New York City, and the time zone difference from Brazil is just 1 hour or 2 hours during winter. Other than that, I didn't really know that much about Montreal. I actually debated if I should go back to Brazil or, if I should move to Europe. But I eventually told myself, you know what? Why not give Montreal a shot? Okay, so at this point, I have a lot to say about Montreal. Like a lot. And I feel I need to start with the bad things about Montreal. And there are bad things about this city. So I'll break down this part in 3 topics: the language barrier, the healthcare system, and the winter. So let's jump into it. Some context here. I went to high school in France, so French is kind of a first language to me. When I speak French, I don't really have an accent. It's really like a French person speaking. And before moving to Quebec, I've never heard a person from Quebec speaking French. I didn't even know that it was different from a French-speaking person at all. But it turns out some of the words and some of the expressions are vastly different from the ones we use in France. And that sometimes can cause confusion. I'll give you an example. A friend from Montreal and I went to Quebec City, a city that is 2 hours drive from Montreal, and we were having breakfast. And she turns to me and says, "Je m'ennuie de Montréal." Now, if you're French, the verb ennuyer means to bother, to be fed up with. So I thought she was saying that she didn't like Montreal anymore, when what she was actually saying was, I miss Montreal. So it was a confusion that lasted for 5 minutes, where I was like, move to another city if you don't like Montreal anymore. And she was like, no, but I like, so anyway, it caused confusion. We couldn't understand each other for 5 minutes. I also noticed that every time that I would speak French to someone from here, in a more formal context, my energy would get drained. And this is very weird because I speak the language perfectly, but at the same time, because of the accent, it becomes just much harder for me to assimilate everything that has been said and to keep interacting. This doesn't happen with people that I already know, like friends, but it does happen in a more formal context if I go to a meetup, for example. If you just speak English and you don't speak French at all, and you don't want to learn French, Montreal can be a tough city. And not because people don't speak English here, they do. I would say most people do speak English, but they're also very proud of their French heritage. And the French language is something that they had been fighting for long. So if you don't even put the effort to speak French, this can be regarded as a lack of respect to some degree. I've seen situations where a Quebec person would pretend not to speak English to someone who was trying to speak English to them and would pretend not to understand what they were saying. And then 5 minutes later, speak perfect English to someone else. And this happens because they don't want you to assume they need to speak English to you because they are in their province where technically French is the first language. They think you should learn French and speak to them in French if you're here in their province. And I don't think they're wrong, especially if you live here. This is a very polemic topic here. The healthcare system. Quebec is notorious for having, if not the worst, one of the worst healthcare systems in Canada. Now remember, the healthcare system is free in Canada, which I think is great. It's just that Quebec falls behind the other provinces. I won't pretend I'm an expert and I can just provide solutions to the problem and just offer my solutions to the province. I won't pretend to do that. But as far as I know, Quebec just doesn't have enough doctors and doesn't have enough healthcare professionals in general. You can go to an emergency room and wait 12, 15, 17 hours just to be seen by someone. And this is the emergency room. I actually had a problem where I had to see a doctor and I waited 12 hours to be seen by someone, to then be told that it was nothing, when in fact it was something and I did have to go under surgery. So anyway, this is definitely a downside of Montreal and the Quebec province overall. There's no way around it. I have to talk about it. And if you're from cold parts of Canada, or if you are, from very cold parts in the world, you're gonna say, yes, it's cold and there's nothing we can do about it. But if you're not from places that are this cold, like most of Europe or South America or Asia in general, you've no idea what's coming your way. It's cold. It's actually really cold. I'm talking about -30 here. So everything is different. Everything changes during winter. Things we never have to worry about in Europe or in warmer places. Things that to this day I look and I say, wow, that's insane. I'll give you a few examples. Your wardrobe will change dramatically. These are just few of the things that you have to have in order to live in Canada, or at least in cold parts of Canada. Winter jacket. So here it is. This is my winter jacket. It's made of goose down, which tends to be the warmest type of insulation for jackets. And it's really good. It withstands, cold winds and cold temperatures. So I'm pretty happy with it. And one thing that I didn't know, like you see in the movies sometimes, especially if you're from, I don't know, a warmer place in Europe, or somewhere else that is not as cold here as in Canada, you would see in movies this kind of fur, and I never understood exactly what it was. I thought it was mostly aesthetics and kind of design thing, but it isn't. It really is for the snow falling. This will protect your face because you put it, of course, the hood, and this will prevent that snow from falling into your face and in your eyes. So it's pretty good. Base layers. I have different types of base layers. This one is the one that I use for snowboarding because it's the warmest. So I like to keep that one for snowboarding. But I have thinner ones. I have, for different types of cold. If it's too cold, then I tend to use the warmer ones. If it's not as cold, and also how I layer. So I like having this variety to play with. Winter boots. I have 2 winter boots. This is the one that I use the most, the black one, just because it matches most of the things that I have. And as you can see, it has this fleecy thing inside. I have a brown one, again, all the fleecy thing inside. They are quite warm, both of them, but this one is the one that I would say is the warmest. Gloves or mittens. I have also different types of gloves. So this one are leather gloves. Not as thick as you can see, So they kind of furry inside. They have this fleece thing. And these ones are very thin, and I use them also when I go snowboarding because I have a thinner layer under my warmer gloves. So even when I do take my gloves off, I still have a thin layer of protection. You'll be walking on snow and there's just no grip for your shoes, and then you have muddy snow resulting from warmer weather, which makes a mess every time that you step inside. When I have a car, welcome to hell. Here's just a small list of things that you have to have if you have a car that you wouldn't need in most places on Earth. Winter tires, special windshield washer fluid, the one that doesn't freeze, shovel to remove the snow out of the way, snow brush of course, tire traction mat, and because they use salt to dissolve the snow, now you have salt being thrown at your car at all times. So you have to think of that too and protect your car against corrosion. And the city has to remove the snow from the streets, including the places cars are parked. So you have to take your car elsewhere, otherwise you get a fine. And if your car isn't a four-wheeler, how are you going to get out of that pile of snow? Yep, there's that too. Giuliano, the way you say it, this place looks like hell. Why do you live there? Well, let's talk about the very good things. Montreal is a very safe city. If you compare Montreal to large cities worldwide, you'll see that Montreal is one of the safest cities out there. And I can see it on my day-to-day, especially women. I think women, generally speaking, feel safe here, walking on the streets at night, even deserted, dark places. So it's a great thing that you can walk and not have to worry about your phone, your watch or your car. Montreal has charmed me from day one. The first day when I got here, I went for a walk and I went to the old part of the city. We call it Old Montreal. And it's a very beautiful neighborhood close to downtown. It's almost 400 years old and it's home to one of the most beautiful architectures in North America, with some of its buildings dating back to the 17th century. I could not talk about the good things here without mentioning the history, the rich history and cultural diversity of Montreal. Montreal was an early French settlement and it has played a significant role in Canada's political, cultural and economic landscape. Montreal has been a hub of immigration, commerce and innovation, and it has been the site of numerous events and developments that have shaped the country and its history. Over the years, people from all around the world have come to Montreal to live and work and have brought with them their families and their traditions. This has created a melting pot of cultures that have enriched the city and made it one of the most culturally diverse cities in the world. I personally think it's one of the most beautiful things a city can have. And generally speaking, Canada is embraceful of diversity. I've experienced that wherever I went, but I just think Montreal has more of it. And it's fascinating to be able to be around people with such different interests and passions and traditions. I've been reading the history of Canada to try to understand the country better. And there is this government general, his name was John Buchan, that in 1937 said that immigrants should retain their individuality and each make its contribution to the national character, that each could learn from the other, and while they cherish their own special loyalties and traditions, they cherish no less than new tradition and loyalty that springs from their union. And to me, that is incredibly powerful and beautiful. In times like ours, where we're so divided and there's so much conflict, it's nice to see a place where it's possible. It's definitely not perfect and not everybody embraces that concept here, but at least I feel there is an intentional effort to get there. The vibrant food and entertainment scene. Food is amazing. Like I said, Montreal is incredibly diverse. So of course you will have restaurants with every possible cuisine in the world. Montreal is home to famous plays and amazing events all year round, especially during summer, where the city seems to become a huge party venue. We have all kinds of festivals and staying home almost seems like a sin. Everybody's doing a million things every day and you can't possibly stay home. terrible for productivity, I should say. Also the supermarkets. This is going to sound a bit crazy, but it's not everywhere that you can find good produce in good supermarkets here in North America, or at least that has been my experience. So I'm pleasantly surprised to see we have good supermarkets here, probably a great French influence here. We have amazing varieties of cheese. And I love cheese. And finally, winter. Yes, the exact winter I was talking about in the first part of this video. See, winter is not just about muddy snow and snow removal and extreme cold. It's also about resting up in the comfort of your home. It's about chalets. It's about wood fire, having good wine and good friends to share it with. It's about ice skating, sledding, and my favorite one of all, snowboarding. And it took me a while to figure that out. Winter can be depressing for some people. I've seen many people struggling to get through winter in good mental health. But I think you can change the way you look at winter. And instead of looking at it as a dead season, you can try to make it fun and enjoyable. And snowboarding is a good part of that for me. The more I do it, the more I enjoy it. To the point where now I look forward to winter because I know how much fun I'll have going to the slopes, riding with my friends, and then later going to a restaurant and sharing a good time. And here's the thing, now I enjoy so much the snow because of snowboarding, but also ice skating and going to the mountains, going to chalets and cooking more comfort food, having great wine with friends, that I don't know if I'd be able to live in a place where it doesn't snow. Yes, I said it. I didn't think Montreal was going to be enough for me. I really didn't. I could live anywhere in Europe, literally. And I'm not saying Montreal is better than the cities you can find in Europe. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, for me personally, Montreal is good enough, so I don't want to move to the point that I don't want to move to Europe or to Brazil. And that's saying something. As I sit and reflect on my time here, I am filled with a sense of gratitude and joy. Every day, I'm reminded of the simple joys in life. Whether it's walking through the bustling markets, taking in the sights and sounds of the city, or sipping coffee at a quaint cafe in Little Italy, I'm constantly surrounded by beauty. Am I gonna stay here for the rest of my life? I don't know. Probably not. But for now, I call the city my home. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you soon.